Great. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. Welcome to our Open Graph webinar today, sponsored by Work4 in cooperation with the Recruiting Blogs team. Today, I'm very happy to take a kind of an innovative and maybe even disruptive look at how to use Facebook for recruiting. We're very excited to look at what they call Open Graph, or the graph search that was launched earlier this year by Facebook, and how it can be specifically used by sourcing and recruiting professionals to find talent from the biggest database in the world. We're just going to wait a few more seconds here, and then we'll introduce myself. We'll cover a little bit about the Work4 organization that I represent, and then also introduce you to Johnny, our guest speaker today. So give us a couple seconds, and then we'll begin in probably about 15 or 20 seconds here. We'll get started, and we look forward to a packed hour worth of content, and then we're going to hold questions towards the end of the session, so feel free to chat questions if you have them now, and as you hear of things that make you think of other questions related to the topic and the recruiting innovation we're talking about today, just put that into the chat window, and you can ask questions as well.
Awesome.
Great. So why don't we get started? Again, thank you for joining. If you want to move to the next slide, Johnny, we'll get this started. So my name is CJ Reuter. I represent a company called Work4, and if you're tweeting with us today or posting any of content, please use the hashtag Work4webinar. We have been in existence for a little over 3 years. We work with thousands of customers. We're basically the worldwide leader in Facebook recruiting. What that means is we started a long time ago. We are an official preferred marketing developer partner of Facebook. We've won some prior awards in the HR industry through Gartner and others, and then we also have strategic partnerships with talent management systems, and we're globally represented with offices in San Francisco and Paris. So my background is in global work with global customers, and when I joined Work4, that's when I was able to kind of see the power of Facebook and see what it could do for global customers. Been with the company a little under 2 years, and right now I manage our enterprise accounts and also the client success implementation and our advertising team. So I'm very pleased to welcome Johnny Campbell, who is the Chief Sourcing Ninja over at Social Talent, and he's going to bring his unique perspective on the world of Facebook as a recruiting tool, and then how it's changing and how it's going to be kind of more available as a sourcing tool versus maybe a strategic branding tool in the past via the Open Graph search. So Johnny, I'm going to kick it over to you, and I'll let you take over and share the content for your presentation with the group. And thank you very much for joining today.
Thanks, CJ. I'll tell you an interesting story about my job title. I got abused on Facebook for that job title this week. I had a stranger say he came across some guy on LinkedIn who said he was Chief Sourcing Ninja, and what a I won't say what word he used. Because I used to be CEO, and I hated that job title for a startup business, although we're 3 years in business now. And what we do is we train people to be sourcing ninjas. So I thought, well, I'm the chief. Let's put it in there. So only in Facebook would you get that kind of conversation where someone's willing to mock you so openly. He found me on LinkedIn and wanted to mock me amongst his friends on Facebook, but somebody tagged me in the conversation. That's the power of Facebook. Proven to me even for bad job titles. So let me talk to you about what we're going to do over the next session. All right, we're going to take lots of questions and answers at the end. Please, as CJ said, do answer your questions in the chat facility, or you can tweet out on that hashtag Work4webinar with your questions as we go along in comments, right? So what we're going to talk about is, one, getting your house in order on Facebook and social sites. So looking at you, your company, and your presence on Facebook. Before we even look at Open Graph, I think it's really important to get your house in order. We'll talk about searching the graph, what you're hopefully all here really to hear more about and see, and what is semantic search and how to search semantically. And then really importantly, when we find good people, and hopefully you'll see how we can find them, we'll talk about how to reach out. So what is best practice when it comes to the medium to use, the message to use, and how to do better research around that. So that's kind of 3 core things we're going to look at. So the first thing, right, talk about your profile, your company's presence on Facebook. We're talking about a concept of branding, which strangely to recruiters. And to explain, I've been a recruiter for 15 years. So I've been training recruiters on how to be ninjas and use great tools and technology for the last 3 years. But my background is doing financial insurance recruitment for international companies for a long time before that. And I never knew this concept of branding and recruiting. Recruiting was a simple job. But to explain it to us, to my brethren, us recruiters, and how we use these things, we got to understand marketing concepts. So the first thing I gotta just ask you guys to look at is these two large rectangles framing a small rectangle in the middle. CJ, you're going to be my partner here. So take a look at the two inner rectangles. Which of those two rectangles is the darker? The one on the right or the one on the left?
Looks like the one on the right is darker.
Looks like the one on the right is darker. I think everyone would probably agree with that unless you've seen this before. But when I take it away and just show you the two inner squares, which is the darker now?
Looks even to me, Johnny.
They're even. The thing is, they were both the same back here, but the frame of a dark background around the left-hand one made it seem lighter, and the frame of a light background around the right-hand side made it seem darker. And this is essentially what branding is. It's framing the context of what you're trying to do. So, for example, when you present a job spec for, let's say, an audit associate here, that is framed by whom presents it. So if I come across an organization like these unfortunate guys I found on Facebook, Assalam Audit and Advisory, who have 92 likes, if they approach me to be an audit associate, the frame of that job spec is not too pretty. But the same job spec framed by Deloitte in New Zealand with their 5,575 likes, their beautifully branded page, and their great content that gets lots of engagement, makes this an interesting role. And quite simply for recruiters, the whole branding idea, personal branding, employer branding, it's all just about framing the context of the job proposition you're going to put to a candidate one-on-one. And both who the person is who makes the approach, can you be trusted to know if somebody with my background is suitable for this role, can you accurately represent your employer and have a discussion with me about genuinely what is best for me, the potential candidate, and also your firm and its reputation and knowledge as well. They're really, really important, all right? By the way, Animal, thank you for your beautiful ninja sucks term on Twitter there. I am reading your feed and appreciate your comments. So we look at branding as an abstract context, kind of idea sometimes in recruitment, but it's so relevant and so practical in terms of how we frame what we're trying to do when we represent jobs, all right? And it's not just about, you know, what your page looks like, because that's really important in your brand, your profile online. But it's also the interaction that you get. So you look at, you know, back to this Assalam Audit and Advisory in Pakistan, they're getting content with one like, with just logos, and they're posting out their job. Yet you've got the likes of Deloitte and other companies like them who are posting out, you know, great content like this, which rather than just lazily saying, here's a job, apply here, they're taking photographs of people holding up little signage going, hey, applications close at midnight tomorrow. And the likes of that gets out 28 likes and 2 shares. You know, you got this guy again, another guy holding a big, what are you into, apply now. 49 likes, 1 comment, 2 shares on that. Because this is Facebook, and doing this in Facebook is different to doing this on LinkedIn. Even to a degree doing this on Twitter or a job board, right? When you use Facebook, and I hope most of you on this webinar are big Facebook users on a personal level, you use Facebook not to find a job, not to be found for a job. You use it to look at photographs, to engage, to watch a funny video, to snoop on your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Whatever you're using it for. I'll show you how to do that today, by the way. But what we're going to do is show you how to frame your jobs in a Facebook content as well, and say, when you're trying to engage with people who are in this stream, using this medium called Facebook, where they don't want to talk business all the time, you've got to start talking on their level. And you can see great examples of what employers do and how it works. If you're a recruiter, if you're an employer yourself, and you want to see what best practice is, look at a few companies' pages and see which are the ones that have the most likes, and correlate that with their brand. If they've got a big consumer brand, they're going to get likes anyway. But look at their engagement. You know, is it a small brand that gets lots of engagement, small amount of likes, but loads of people interact? Or what they're interacting with works. And you can easily see what works. You don't need a lesson from an expert. You just scroll down the content and look at the differences. And you quite easily see that old-fashioned content, text-based content doesn't work. Nice visual images do. Another concept that's really important about the basic, around just the employer brand, a personal brand, is the concept of social proof. One that goes back to Robert Cialdini and his book on influence in the early 80s. And he looked at social proof and defined it as, I find this concept in social psychology as people will do things that they see other people are doing, right? If myself and CJ stood on a road and started looking up at the third floor of a building beside us, I guarantee you people around us would stop and start looking up the same third floor to see what's happening, right? This is what people do. You look at Facebook, and if you find me on Facebook, please go find me. I'm Johnny, facebook.com/Johnny Campbell. When you land on my profile, it's going to pop up and say, hey, we've got mutual friends. The thing is, if you're a prospective candidate looking at who this person is reaching out to you on Facebook or who's calling you or contacting you, Facebook already show you these things. If you have no mutual friends, I have less trust. If I see 18 of my friends trust you, I'll be your friend. I use this myself when I get connection requests from people. Most people who connect me, I don't know personally by name. But if I have common friends, I trust you. I use that social proof of my network to say, you must be all right because 18 of my friends think you're all right. Really important about thinking about Facebook as a recruitment tool. Because a lot of recruiters I know who say, I want to use Open Graph to find candidates, don't want to open their personal profile to be found by people on Facebook. And they're worried about, do I need a separate business profile to connect with people if I'm going to use this tool? Well, fundamentally, people will only trust you if it's the real you. And the real you has lots of friends and you're networked well, you're a good recruiter. And that person is going to get more trust and have more social proof in your audience. And these are things that you've got to do first and got to do right before you start even thinking about using Open Graph as a recruiting tool. But it's also about what you say. Do I trust this person who has 18 common friends with me? Or what kind of conversations does he have? You know, do the conversations get a huge amount of likes and a huge amount of comments? So do I have 56 comments on the post I put out there? Do lots of people like what I have to say? Again, we use this instinctively on Facebook and elsewhere. We look for likes and shares and everything else as evidence of social proof. So you got to ask yourself before you go in here and look at Facebook as a recruiting tool. Does it look like people? Does it look like people like working for your company right now? Does it look like the other people would like to come work for you? Okay. And then lastly, do you look like a credible person that people can trust their career with? Because when you come to a Facebook as an employer and as a recruiter, these are the three questions you must have good answers for. You know, they'll look at your current staff. Do they seem like they like working for your organization? Does it seem like other people are interested in talking to you about working there? And do you seem credible representing that employer? You've got to get those things right. Okay, that element of social proof is about demonstrating your expertise. So you've got to demonstrate that by making sure that your work in education, for example, and your background is filled out nicely. You've got all that information. And it also doesn't translate outside Facebook because people will research you on places like LinkedIn to see your summary, that look and validate your skills. I know a lot of recruiters joke about skills being a nonsense on LinkedIn, but you know what? When people have loads of them endorsed, it's kind of like, okay, maybe some of them are silly, but 99 plus, 99 plus, 99 plus, that's social proof that you must be good at something. And you have lots of followers. Do people engage with you on places like Twitter, okay? All these social tools. It's about utilizing this concept that is 30 years old now of social proof and how people will do what others do. And that's what the world of likes and followers and all that kind of stuff actually means when you try and go recruit a candidate. Do they trust what you're putting out there? You can prove this with social content, you know, by sharing content that gets a huge amount of, you know, 949 shares, 490 tweets, 405 shares on LinkedIn. Let's leave Pinterest and Google Plus alone for a second here, right? But if I'm just having a person who shares these kind of articles, even before I read the article, I'll go, this must be interesting. Because you know what? Loads of other people have shared it and liked it. Now, that may be wrong, often will be wrong, but it does give some semblance of social proof. So as a recruiter who wants people to respond to them, trust them, listen to them, there's a reason why other recruiters out there tweet a lot, write blogs, share content, are active everywhere, have lots of contacts. It's not just about it's nice to do, because every recruiter I know has a target. They're trying to fill an internal rec before a certain deadline, or priority recs, or they're in an agency with a target. They're not doing this for the good of their health. They're doing this because whether they realize it or not, their mind knows that having a great presence online, looking like you're well networked and authoritative, gives you that, gives people that evidence that you're somebody they can trust. So how do you do this kind of stuff? I'll briefly talk about some of those things. I use smart scheduling to look like I'm constantly posting stuff online using tools like bufferapp.com. I don't know if you guys ever use bufferapp.com, but BufferApp is a great tool that allows you to, I'll get about it here in a second, schedule stuff. So you can basically register an account here. You find a good piece of content that you want to share online. And what you do is you basically share it, and you can post it out there and buffer it so that it posts out every 2 or 3 days or in 2 or 3 days time, so it looks like you're constantly active on social. So you want to share content that looks like you're smart and knowledgeable. Sit down on a Monday morning for 20 minutes, find 10 articles, buffer them 2 a day for the next 5 days. It looks like you're always putting this stuff out, so it's a smart use of your time as well. And when you're talking about Facebook content, should you be posting your jobs out there? So CJ, should somebody post their jobs all over their Facebook page day in, day out?
I think it would be better to do it strategically.
Exactly, strategically. I don't want to see jobs in my stream. It's like spam. I'm on Facebook to snoop. I want to see photographs of your wife, but she looks kind of hot, CJ. That's what I want to see, I want to see what my ex-girlfriend is doing. I want to see her get fat and ugly because that makes me feel better. This is what people use Facebook for, right? Do you want to see jobs? Not necessarily, all right? But what I wouldn't mind seeing is have a way that I can access your brand and then still see your job if I want to. So companies like L'Oreal have great tabs where if you want to find that information on Facebook, we'll show it to you without leaving Facebook, no problem at all. PepsiCo do the same thing. You can see their career possibilities but within Facebook and search them and see them. So they recognize the value of when someone's in Facebook, if you can grab their attention, if you can passively bring them over to you, then do allow them to stay in Facebook and still research this stuff, but don't make it your top priority. Your content, to take a PepsiCo example here for Thanksgiving last week, isn't here's the jobs we're hiring for this Thursday. It's share this with someone you're thankful for. And they have Happy Thanksgiving Day made up with bottles of their brands. And then you've got 76 shares, 243 likes, 7 comments. And the Pepsi brand is just being disseminated all over Facebook for lots of people to remember. Okay, so that's the kind of content that works here. You've got Deloitte here. I used the example of Deloitte New Zealand. It's a great page. A good friend of mine, Paul Jacob, helped build this page for the guys and their content strategy, where they're sharing not just the jobs, so they are trying to hire. That's the whole objective of it, your future at Deloitte. They're sharing photographs of staff saying they're going to do a challenge for charity. I'm going to raise some money, give them their support. 43 likes, 9 comments, because that's human interest. That's what Facebook is all about, human interest. That's what works well for people. So let me talk to you about graph, right? Getting this yourself set up and getting thinking about Facebook is not the full objective here today. We're here to talk about graph, and I want to show you the power of it, right? What is it, though? It allows you to search Facebook for anything that's publicly available. We're not about to show you data that is locked down. We're not about to show you how all the private stuff you're posting about what you do at the weekend is going to be searchable by recruiters. It's not, okay? If you've locked down your privacy settings on your information on your profile or on the posts you put out there, it's still private. You're safe, okay? Well, safe from the normal people. Maybe not from hardcore sources, but you're pretty safe, all right? So anything that's public is available to search. Any data that your friends have shared, and so your friends will have settings that might say, my posts can be seen by friends or friends of friends, so that data will still be available to you as well. So I might see more data than you, depending on what my friends have allowed me to see, but for the most part, I see the same information as somebody who joins Facebook tomorrow with a graph search. It allows me to search not just the bios, because LinkedIn allows me to see bios. Resume databases allow me to see bios. Facebook has a lot more data on you than you'd imagine. And they call these things social objects. So everything you like, it considers some sort of signal of interest. When you check in somewhere, that's a signal that you regularly visit there, and probably you like whatever the food is in that restaurant, or the type of coffee, or the location, that you're there regularly. And even tags. Let's say your friend, so CJ, let's say you're on vacation and your buddy takes a photograph of you with their iPhone and shares it to Facebook. I'm sure that's happened before, yeah? Or your wife does it when your kids do it.
Yeah, you get tagged and there's nothing you can do. It's all of a sudden it's shared.
Self-tagged. Well, Facebook knows that you were not only in that photograph, but knows that you must have a connection with the person who shared it. They also know that the geolocation information, your XYZ coordinates are given to Facebook by your phone, because it's recorded by your iPhone or Android device. It knows exactly where you are at that time as well, and can map you. So it knows where you've been, what you're doing, who you're connected to, even if you aren't explicitly telling it. Facebook knows a lot of stuff about you. So it's also now searching hashtags. So any hashtags, Facebook brought this in earlier this year. You can find hashtags. And they announced that they're going to be allowing all of us to search keywords in people's updates. So it's not there yet, but pretty soon you'll be able to see this on full release, where I can look for, just like I can on Twitter, people who are sharing any sort of conversation publicly that contain any amount of keywords they want. So you can imagine the power of seeing who's talking about your brand or your business, or talking about things like hate my job, or love a new job, or whatever it might be. But graph search is different to every other search engine you've ever seen. And the main reason is because it's semantic. And the idea of a semantic search engine is it understands the meaning of what you want to find versus the actual keywords you type. This is very different to all the other databases. The other databases we search, I type in engineer, that's exactly what I see. Not engineers, not engineering, not engineer, just engineer. No other different variation. Whereas Facebook understands that engineer could mean developer, it could mean engineering, could mean somebody who likes engineering or went to school with an engineering background. It understands that you mean to find people who are just engineers. Just like if I say to you, hey CJ, go find me some accountants, you're thinking about people who have CPA qualifications, maybe something else, who work as financial controllers, finance managers. In your head, you naturally think of all these different words. In fact, you probably don't even think in words, you think of people. Facebook's trying to understand the intended meaning and match that, which is harder than it sounds. It's harder than it sounds to actually use as well. So how it works, natural language works by saying to Facebook something like, I want to find people who currently work at IBM. I want to find people who studied computer science, or recruiters who live in New Hampshire. So you talk to Facebook just like you talk to a friend or a colleague, with less curse words, of course. But you describe what you want, and Facebook's algorithm is trying to understand and make sense of that. And this was only launched in January, guys, and it's the first type of natural search engine like this. It's publicly available. And it hasn't got it all right yet. It's only US English for the moment. I'll show you how to turn it on if you're overseas and you don't currently have it as well. But they haven't cracked it yet. They're getting better all the time, but it's not quite there. And that's one thing CJ's going to talk about, how Work4 solution makes that much easier for the average recruiter to find more out of it without trying to really get to know the language of it. But I'm going to give you a taste of it to show you the power of what's in there. But you can also add other expressions to your search, like I want to find recruiters that live in New Hampshire and have visited San Francisco. Because maybe the type of person I'm looking for isn't available in San Francisco, but I'll find somewhere that I think has some sort of relationship with that city, and I'll find the people who've been in San Francisco. Because, hey, it's much easier to call somebody and say, I want you to go to a location that I know you've been in, remembering Facebook knows where they were tagged, knows what photographs they were captured in and tagged in that city. They know this kind of stuff about you. So it's as simple as this, right? You've got a Facebook search bar up the top, and you just start typing. Recruiters who like social talent, our business. And it brings up search results that you'll see here. If it's a matching search that's available, it shows these little blue icons. And it shows you all the searches that might be a close match. And then if it's not available in the index, and lots of searches aren't yet, it'll just show you web search, and use Bing to find that. And I'm going to give you a live demo. By the way, I noticed very quickly around, my wife is trying to message me on my computer screen, so please ignore me while I delete her messages and minimize this, all right? So I'm on Facebook here, and I want to try and find something. So CJ, give me something I want to try and find here. Do you think of anything, CJ?
Why don't we try nurses in Seattle?
Okay, so nurses who live in Seattle?
Sure.
That work? So nurses who live in Seattle, Washington. I click that there, and off it goes. You'll see that it prompts me to basically bring up this search. And I get nurses who live in Seattle. And look at here, we've got an RN. So this is the beauty about semantic, that Facebook knows an RN is a registered nurse. I don't need to say RN or nurse or et cetera, et cetera. It knows that they're one and the same thing. Registered nurse, a clinical care manager is the same thing as well. An ICU staff nurse, or .n is the same as RN is the same as nurse. It finds all this stuff for me and shows me that there's more than 1,000 people. Now I could have written my search in a different way. Rather than nurses who live in Seattle, I can say nurses, Animal is tweeting away there, thank you Animal. I didn't turn my alerts off. It's a big no-no for webinars, so apologies for that. Nurses who are from Seattle. You'll see the difference in the search there, CJ?
Yeah.
It's a different search because these are people who are from, some of them are going to be still there, but remember that on your Facebook bio, right? So if I look at my own bio, you'll see that Facebook knows a bit about me. It knows all these jobs I've had, it knows the places I've lived, and it knows my hometown. So it knows I'm from this city, but I'm currently in this part of the city. It knows these different things, and it brings this stuff together, and then knows all these data.
So Jonathan, is it pick Seattle if it's a direct match because you've entered that keyword? Is it a 15-mile radius? How does the geo work, just so the recruiters know how accurate that is?
in my experience, CJ, it's not very accurate. If you pick a sublocation of Seattle, it doesn't always bring you up under the wider Seattle search. Okay, so nurses who live in Seattle, there are a number of locations in Seattle I could have picked, and I won't get them all each time. Okay, so I'm not. It should aggregate this, but I believe your tool works a little bit better. It should pick all locations in Seattle, but on doing lots of experiments, it doesn't quite work that way. So there are different places. So if I say nurses who live in, for example, so Dundrum is a place in Dublin where I'm from, and I can see nurses who live in Dundrum, and I got these two people. But if I look for nurses who live in Dublin, and I've gone through the search before, I won't necessarily find those two people, even though that Dublin location is part of the larger group of Dublin locations. I won't find them. So it isn't always accurate that way, again, and it's largely about how you write the search. They have the data to group that, but it's just the way that you have to write it here isn't exactly perfect.
Yeah,
right, so that's one of the challenges you have.
It's safe to say outside of Google, no one's ever tried to do this kind of search language and result exercise on this big of a database ever. So I think this is iteration 1, and I think it's just going to get better and better.
There's 1.2 billion people here. You know, I was asked, I was at a conference and somebody posed the question, and they said, how many accountants, or if you were looking for accountants aged 35 to 45, and you were given 3 databases, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, who has the most accountants aged 35 to 45? You probably know the answer to this, CJ. Most people, everybody says LinkedIn, but there are more accountants aged 35 to 45 on Facebook than any other database. In fact, you pick any demographic, there's more of them on Facebook, because with 1.2 billion people, they just beat every other database. Even if you say, well, there's more young people or there's more media or blue-collar workers, yeah, there's a higher percentage versus LinkedIn, but there's just 4 times the amount of people on Facebook than LinkedIn, so therefore you're going to beat them on every single type of demographic.
Yeah, and
maybe
the newest.
Oh, CJ, I've lost you on the newest.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're back. Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Okay, I was going to say the average age is now 38 on Facebook, so it surprises people when they hear that.
Big time. Everybody's on Facebook with 1.2 billion people. So let me tell you, you can do things like I can specify a job title of somebody at a company and target, pinpoint by company and job title, just like you can in LinkedIn or your CV data, your resume databases as well. But let me talk to you about what I've seen as leveraging Facebook to the max for this, right? Searching by job title and location is a no-brainer. So somebody with a certain job title, like nurses who live in Seattle, we did that. Developers who live in New York. Software engineers who are from. Again, surprisingly, this gives different results here. I would have thought developers and software engineers might pick up the same people. It doesn't quite do that, all right? And by the way, I'll come back to this in a second, but you can find single women from Sweden who live in New York. I can do a search as complicated as that. Now, show me a CV resume search database or a LinkedIn product that finds me single women from Sweden who live in New York. I think you'd struggle. That kind of search you run every day, CJ? You're appropriately quiet. Well, let me talk to you about one that actually can be a good thing.
I'm not going to touch that one, Jonathan.
Don't touch that one. I'll be all over those searches. That's all right.
I'm married too.
That's all right. My wife's messaging me, but she's not on this webinar. We're okay. So, finding developers who work at a company, software engineers who used to work at, and programmers who ever worked. So, CJ, can you tell me the differences between the 3 different searches we've had here?
I think it's going to be based on job title and or how people define themselves, and then every company we work with would potentially define them differently too, based upon their nomenclature internally in the job description.
But even ignoring the job titles for a second, let's say they all say developers. Can you see the difference? Developers who work at company X, developers who used to work at company X, and programmers, or say developers who ever worked at company X.
Yeah, you can tell when they worked there.
So this is the thing. You can find people by the subtleties of your language. So in a LinkedIn search, this will be, the first search will be previous employer, the middle search will be current employer, and then the last search will be current or previous. But in Facebook language, you have to remember that how you phrase it is really important. So people who currently work there, who used to work there, who ever worked there. And this is where it does get a little bit tricky. So people who work at Facebook, okay? So I can say people who work at Facebook. Great. I can say in that search there's more than 1,000 people. People who used to work at Facebook. So ex-employees. I can type that in and find those people in that search. So ex-staff members. Then people who have ever worked at Facebook and live in Dublin, my hometown, where Facebook's international headquarters are. And I get all of the people, past or present, who live in that city. So you start combining the searches as well. So it's really great that you can do the searches, but it also means that you have to be careful how you write it, because you could miss somebody. You can search by education, and this is really interesting as well. You can find people, for example, who have graduated with a specific type of degree. And what the semantic search does really well here is it groups different degree types together as one category. So computer science or business or marketing graduates, for example, who live in a certain city. Or you can specify the time, the range of years, so graduated from from say this university after a certain date. So CJ, what is your university that you went to?
I went to Penn State.
People who will graduate from Penn State after 2014. So I can do a search like this, which, trust me, if you're doing grad recruitment, you can never find people like this elsewhere. More than 1,000 people who will graduate from Penn State after 2014. So the power of being able to search for those people and target them and find them, and then narrow them down, because I haven't even shown you down the right-hand side how you can refine your search. And this is where you get this things like gender. Do you want to go female or male? What relationship status? This is where I did my joke search for Swedish women. Single people, married people. Now, I don't want to even go there as to what you should be looking for. There's whole legal issues around what you should be. I'm just showing what you can search for, right? These different filters. The employer names, their current city, their hometowns, what school they went to, what degree, if their friend's a friend, all this kind of stuff, right? So people who will graduate from Penn State after 2014 are people who graduated from Penn State in 2013. So let's get the current graduates, people who graduated this year. Maybe that's our target market. Again, it's just about how you phrase it. So I'm going quite fast here, but what you should do when you're using this is people who, and it's type slowly so that it can help you and prompt you with suggested searches around there. And use your personal information to suggest them. But when you make a spelling mistake, for example, your suggestions will start disappearing. Okay, and you'll start going into this. So it's not smart enough to correct spelling mistakes or anything else, right? So those do cause a few problems there. You can mix up these searches. You can say, I want to find current Seattle residents who work at Microsoft, software engineers who've ever worked at Microsoft and then currently live in Vancouver, for example. And this is another real unique area where graph search can find new candidates, is developers who've ever worked at a certain company in a certain city and like music. So I've got a friend of mine, Oscar Mager, at Oscar Mager on Twitter, and he works for Sonos. Do you know Sonos, the guys that make the really cool speaker equipment, the wireless speaker equipment?
Sonos, yeah.
Yeah, Sonos. Yeah, my friend Oscar works for them for the European recruiting team. And Sonos, when they're hiring developers, customer services people, salespeople, you name it, what makes them unique, or their unique offering, is their product, they believe. They don't pay more than everybody else. Their culture is cool and nice, but it's similar to other cool startup companies. But what differentiates them is people who love music, love working for Sonos, because they just make this amazing product. And have you ever tried searching Career Builder or LinkedIn for people who love music? It's crazy. Even if they have it on their interests on their resume, you can't believe it. But on Facebook, I can say people who work in sales and love music. So like music, it's correcting me there. Work in sales and like music. And these are people who like lots of different bands or like venues or check-in and big venues. And they're strongly correlated with that check-in or that like status above other users. And this is a way of trying to find people who are probably more assistant to what you're looking for. So work in sales and like music and live in, and again, go slowly to make sure you've got the right area. Let's say San Francisco, California. And that's the search we want. Work in sales, like music, live in San Francisco. And we get it narrowed down to more than 1,000 people. No problems there. So you can start combining quite sophisticated searches. And maybe we're trying to basically increase the amount of women in our workforce, in our sales team, because they're all male in this environment. We can say, well, let's have a look at people who are women in this search. So we can try and find those individuals. And we narrow it down, and we'll give it a second here and we'll update our search. It'll find people under that demographic as well. So strangely, just the one. So shows you why it's such a challenge to find women. That's women who like musicians and live in San Francisco. So here's one of the problems is it gets it wrong sometimes. And this is one of the challenges of using the graph directly is it is a bit particular about what you're looking for and doesn't always get it right, CGA, which I'm sure you can talk about how we can correct that as well in a second. For international recruitment and for moving people across different states, I found this really useful. So let's say you're recruiting for a location that doesn't have many skills native to that location, but you want to find people who have something, some affinity with that location. You can find people who have ever visited that location. So I might try to find, let's say, software engineers who have ever visited. Give me, what's your hometown, CJ?
I'd say Orange County, California.
I'm going to find lots of people who've ever visited Orange County, California, but let's say Orange County, Florida, for example, right? So who visited Orange County? So nobody for that one. What about engineers
You can say Irvine.
Ever visited Irvine, California? All right. So visited Irvine, California. Their check-ins, etc., etc., and we get those people here. They might be from the area, but they have visited. So we see this person has visited this place plus 436 other places. So there's some sort of affinity. I guarantee if you can't find anyone locally for this job, people who've at least been there before, you have a higher chance of calling that person and saying, hey, I believe you've been in Irvine, California before. Yeah, I've been there. I've got friends there. Well, listen, we have a job opening here. Would you be interested to consider it? That affinity piece works quite well to attract people. Or you can bet people who've ever studied at a certain place. Or let's say live in a certain area and speak a language. So if you've got to do language hiring, so Facebook I found has been enormously useful for the recruiters I know who want to find people who have specific language skills. So what language skills do you find employers typically look for that you've come across, CJ?
Well, we're a French-based and U.S.-based company, so I would say French would be huge, and then if we're dealing with Latin America, obviously Spanish or Portuguese is
And you're based in San Francisco with your office in the U.S.?
California, yeah.
Let's say we say San Francisco. People live in San Francisco and speak French. All right. So I can do this search, and I get language skills. All right, and I get our good friend Jerome here popping up top, and lots of other people who speak French and live in San Francisco. So maybe that's good for finding staff, but maybe it's also great for trying to connect new staff members with individuals who are from their country living in the same city, the small town, and you can show them how to use this on Facebook. But apart from saying I speak French, what other ways do you think Facebook could know that I'm likely to speak the French language, CJ?
Visited Paris or studied it.
Studied. So people who live in San Francisco and have studied French, let's say. All right, so I've majored in French. That might be good. Let's try that. Live in San Francisco, majored in French, and we've got those people here. But what about people who live in San Francisco and are from France? Because they probably speak French, wouldn't you say? I'm struggling to get my search results here. Give it a second. Yeah, we're from France. So some people say they speak it. Some people say that they are from there. Some people say they've studied it. And this is where you have to kind of look at all the different combinations, because this person doesn't necessarily say they speak French because maybe they don't think that's relevant to put on their bio. We've got your founder Stefan popping up in our searches here nicely.
Yeah, look at that.
But that finds us good people who were from France, and then more than 1,000 people. So rather than saying people, maybe what we look for is engineers who live in San Francisco, California, and are from France. We can start being specific, putting in a location, a country where they're from to imply a language, and then a job title as well. You start getting great people popping up there and being able to utilize this. So the power of search is pretty awesome. So bring me to, hopefully I've convinced somebody that there's great ways to search really unusual types of people and skills and everything on Facebook. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Facebook is your be-all and end-all. It's just really good to use for people that you just won't really find on places like LinkedIn or job boards, or information about them that you won't likely find elsewhere. or just trying to go for the biggest pool and spend your resources in a place where there's just so many people that you can broadly recruit across multiple disciplines, which is what Facebook offers you. When you want to reach out to somebody, CJ, if they're a friend of yours, of course that's free. You can message your friend at any time on Facebook. But you can message friend of friends for free. So if someone's you have a mutual friend in common, you can just go ahead and message those people, right? So you'll see in our search results here, I can basically message somebody, I can add them as a friend. I don't think as a recruiter adding a stranger as a friend is a good thing. It's probably quite creepy. But you can message them. But when you message them, CJ, if I message this guy here, Jeremy, where's my message going to go?
To a box called the Other box, which many people don't know about.
His other folder, because you aren't connected to him on Facebook. So where is this other folder? And it's going to tell me what this is. So if I go back in there, okay, if I look at my personal other folder, I've got my other folder up here, all right? And it's beside my currently. So hey, Alan, how are you? If I see this here, my inbox is here. That's what I normally look at. This is my other folder. A quick look here shows me, greetings to you. I am Barrister. My name is Esther. Spam, 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 spam. This is your other folder you've probably never seen before, right? And you don't get notifications when you get a message there as well. So you have the illusion of messaging somebody, but you don't quite message them. It goes to this magic other folder, all right? And you can see that when you go to write your message by clicking on that button. So what do? Well, Facebook has a paid messaging system for you to use with regard to Open Graph. Just like LinkedIn has a paid messaging system with InMails, where you can pay to contact somebody. So all you do to find it is click on the See More button, and when you expand that, it will suggest that you can send this message for, and it will start at $1. And if you're in a different country, so I'm in euros, it converts it on the spot rate. If I'm in sterling, we'll do the same thing, etc. So it shows me that price. So for example, if I click on this guy, Jeremy, I click message, I click see more, I can message him for 77 cents, and I can tick that, and all I got to do is put my credit card details in there, and I can send that message to this guy, okay? That's what it does. So you see it's changed since I put my slide up here. So you can message, and that goes straight into his inbox, his main inbox. And CJ, when somebody sends you a direct message, private message on Facebook, what device are you usually seeing this message on?
I would probably on my phone.
Probably your phone. Or you see a message on your phone, it's a pop-up message like that. You know what? You're going to respond to that faster than you would to an email. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, the little red circle shows up on the F.
Pops up, you get a notification, pops up in your face, and you're like, yeah, who's this private message? You will notice it faster. I guarantee you faster than the 100 or 200 emails a day you get, which might include your LinkedIn messages or other tools as well. So not only is this, look at the value of this and say, is there a value in sending this message? Being able to reach someone through this very personal private network that gets a higher level of engagement and notice for the messages and has a lower competition. That's a great tool to use, right? People who are avid Facebookers will be messaging all day and prioritizing those messages above and beyond their work emails, I'd even imagine, all right? So it goes from $1, and the price can increase slightly. If the person has a massive network, they'll charge you more. So you can have up to 3,000 friends on Facebook. So bigger networks have a slightly higher charge. And they've also, to try and prevent spamming, they adjust the price based on, did somebody else already try to pay to message this person this week? And if they have, then the price for you goes up because they're trying to dissuade too many people from sending messages. I'd imagine a lot of LinkedIn users would like LinkedIn to do the same for them, but it's not there yet. So my best practice advice as a recruiter who's seen a lot of people do this stuff and use it well is, first of all, try to make sure you're the friends of lots of people you want to reach out to. Is to stop seeing your Facebook account as being private, yours, not used for work. Open it up. I have had more power, more opportunities come to me by connecting with complete strangers who just want to connect with me. And if they want to see the photographs of my kid, that's their downside. They want to see when I go to a gig, hey, that's up to them if they want to see that stuff. But I might get good benefit from this as well. You never know who you're connected through to get to somebody else. And if I see that this strange recruiter has just messaged me out of nowhere, maybe I'll go, who's that creepy person? But if they're a friend of my friend, I'll go, well, again, going back to social proof, if they're a friend of CJ's, I'll reply to the guy. Because the smart recruiter is going to say, hey, we're friends of CJ's. You're going to try and open your network within the niche you recruit for in the location. But you can also find them elsewhere, you know. You don't have to always contact them on Facebook. It's a brilliant search engine, just like you don't always have to contact somebody on LinkedIn. But maybe contact them somewhere else. Use your email, your telephone to do that. So like for telephone, I might go, where does the person work? I type their company name into Google Maps. So I'll look up and say, well, Jeremy, so he works at Backdraft Beats USA. So maybe I'm going into Google Maps. I'm saying, what's the name of this company again? Backdraft Beats USA. Sounds like his own company. But
That's the guy above him, Jonathan. I think that's the guy above him. Jeremy's.
Jeremy, Rue de Commerce.
Rue de Commerce.
So Rue de Commerce, and that's in San Francisco. Let's put it in California. So often what you do is when you want to search for Rue de Commerce, you find locations. In San Francisco, when I find the right guy. If I look for Work4, what you be down is Work4 Labs. So if I look for San Francisco, for companies, often you'll find is the company name will be listed, and you'll find a phone number of who that company is. So typically in a live webinar, of course it's not working for me. Of course I'm not finding the company.
Well, Matrix is our funding partner, so they must have listed us somehow as a VC.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. So if I look for Facebook in California, again, you'll find Facebook Inc., you'll find the company, you'll find the phone number. So easy to find all this stuff and find phone numbers for people, right? Not the end of the world. But also, if I look up this guy's engineering profile, or let's say, let me go back a second and say engineers who live in San Francisco and are from France, right? So if I open up Jerome here, so I'm on Jerome's profile, all right? Apologies, Jerome, for sharing your profile here, so it seems pretty safe enough, right? If I'm opening up Jerome's profile, let me just click open up for 2 seconds. I'm going to activate a little plugin. So I got a little plugin called 360social.me. So this is a free plugin that you can add into Chrome. Anyone can just download the toolbar straight away. You click download, you click add, it activates in your profile. You're in business. You go back and look at a profile. And when you're basically online looking at someone's Facebook profile, Twitter profile, Google Plus profile, LinkedIn profile, any of these things, right? And let me just go into my extensions really quickly, CJ, and turn this on for a second. Once it's turned on, I'm going to enable it there. What you'll find is when you're on someone's profile, like your own here, a little button will appear to the right-hand side, which is just a kind of shaded profile of a silhouette here. When I click on this, it tries to do its work and say, who's this person? And it will cross-reference and say, Jerome, is this person on Twitter, this person on Google+, Facebook, YouTube, his Crunchbase profile, his Quora, his Meetup, his Discuss, his PhotoSugar, his YFrog. It allows me to really quickly cross-reference and go, who's this guy? It's the same guy on LinkedIn. Brilliant. It's the same guy here. If I open up his Twitter account, I got the same Jerome. Fantastic. What does Crunchbase have on Jerome? I can see his profile there on Crunchbase as well. So cross-referencing is really, really quick and easy. I might get a different way to communicate them or just to do better research. And that's a free plugin for Chrome that I use every day. Find it really useful. But also you've got the opportunity of email. And we're going to take questions now in 2 minutes. I'm going to have Matt at me. I crazily said that we'd have time for probably more time for questions. But I can find email patterns very easily. So you can find email patterns any day of the week for somebody by jumping in and saying, well, what is the pattern of the company? Like my email pattern is first name at. You can have first name dot surname. You can have first name underscore, first initial surname. These different companies have different patterns. And we can find them 99% at the same time. And I don't have time to go into this in detail, but what's the domain for your email pattern? So you work, is it work4labs.com, your email, CJ?
It is.
So once I know your website's work4labs.com, for example, I can do a little search like this in Google where I'm saying email *work4labs.com. All I'm doing is looking at people's profiles and saying like J Horton at Work4Labs, G Slevin, D Mystery, J Horton here. Would it be fair to say that your first initials surname? Is that the pattern for your organization?
It is.
So I know your email address and I can basically say, well, if I go to a website like mailtester.com, are you CJ, what's your surname again? How do you spell your name?
R-E-U-T-E-R.
Royer at work4labs.com. I can probably validate and check your address. 60% of addresses can be validated with the site mail tester. I can go and see that's your email address. If I was to forget the J, you'll see red down the bottom, which tells me it's not. So C Reuter, well, it does work for you, but we could say take these different addresses and find ones that aren't validated and don't work. So patterns are easy to find and easy to come up with as well. So again, the data, the search data is brilliant in Facebook in terms of what you can find from people, all right? Just quickly go through there again for you. I just want to kind of quickly summarize. What I'm saying is that before you look at this, you've got to get your house in order, right? Because approaching somebody without a good background for you and your company isn't going to be as effective. Searching it, it's powerful, but it's not easy to do it. It's a very different way of thinking about search, but it's amazing the data Facebook has, above and beyond so many other tools. And then reaching out to people, it's not as simple as it seems, but think outside the box in terms of different mediums, and then also think about networks and how somebody treats a Facebook approach, different ways to approach it, but also look at paid. Don't be scared off by paid messaging. That's what you do on LinkedIn every single day of the week as well. So CJ, I'm going to push back to you for a minute as well. I know you wanted just to kind of talk about, you know, why Work4 got into this space and why you guys got so excited with Open Graph and what it does.
Yeah, thank you, John. And before we take questions, I just want to outline a few things we do, which I think are cool. We were the first company to basically offer automation on the graph search. So you saw how it's natural language. It's a little bit goofy. The results are great if, you know, you're looking for data that it has. And then with graph search, we really want to make it easy for recruiters, because recruiters typically do their sourcing later in the day, or if they're a full-time sourcer, they're on these pages all the time and can get lost, and it's not easy to track. So we allow three things to happen. We build the Facebook job page for the company. So you saw the PepsiCo example, and we work with Deloitte and some of the other companies that Jonathan showed there. We allow you to find the job description you want to match, click a button, and we do the search for you and provide the results. So the starting option is always a list of candidates behind the door for a specific job posting. We then allow everything to be tracked and reported back to a recruiting manager or a director, and then we give you control on who logged in, who did the searches, and then obviously the results on if they came back to a position and applied. So those are really the three reasons why we think having some kind of systematic management, automation, and control features for graph search are in, you know, the best interest of a company, because then you want to know who's using the tool, how successful it is. If you just give the recruiters, you know, 20 minutes a day to go search for candidates and go source, you have no idea what happened, right? They could be really on Facebook, they could be not sourcing. This is a way to kind of control, track, and automate the process and make it easier and give you results right away. So if you want to just go to the next couple of slides, I'll just show examples. So I'm in the back end here. This is a PepsiCo example for a sales representative. This is how easy it is. You find the job title, you click on Find Candidate. There's a couple steps to find the category that, you know, may be better than just the one that sales representative represents, and then you get the results page. It's really that easy. The next step would then be to message somebody, and we can have credits bought in advance so that you don't have to log a personal credit card and then go through the exercise of having to charge back for that dollar per message exercise. And so we've kind of taken the startup piece out of this for you, made it more strategic and then trackable so that everything can then be reported on, and then you can have the ease of use and the success you want out of the gate. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the success right away using the tool just on a regular basis with a single recruiter using the search box at the top of the page. Jonathan, if you go to the next page, you'll see that our CEO actually used this prior to us launching the product to fill a position, and we got a reply in one day. The open rate and reply rate is about 25% right now on the direct messages, which is pretty darn good compared to other sources of kind of cold calling or getting to somebody with a message that, you know, wasn't asked for, if you will. Keep in mind that, I think Jonathan talked about this but didn't say it directly, messaging is important, how you message, how you brand and present the job, and then of course just ask for a referral, similar to what many people do on LinkedIn and other databases to contact folks. Okay, and that's pretty much it. If there's interest in this, let us know. We're at work4labs.com. We have cool videos that talk about the sourcing options. We do Facebook recruiting as basically a flagship of our model of social recruiting, but we also allow you to cross-post to Twitter and LinkedIn. So we kind of use all the social networking sites with an anchor on Facebook.
Cool. Do you have any questions, Matt?
Yeah, the first question we got is, and I don't know if you can speak to this, is what are the OFCCP or compliance issues people should be able to look out for with Facebook Open?
Yeah, it's a really good question and point, and it's come up in some of the tweets as well. What I was just showing you is what the tool can do. Around the compliance issue, maybe CJ, you've probably addressed this with several of your corporate clients on your product.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a twofold answer to this. One is if you've ever been through an audit or you've been audited, you have then told the federal government in the United States or whatever the local authorities were that you agreed to not discriminate in your recruiting practices or to do things a certain way. You've already defined who an applicant is. You defined how you're going to do the process and how you're going to report on how you're going to do the process. So if you're in a situation where you've been audited or you're being audited now, there's certain things you can't do. And you can't say, this person's an applicant and I made the decision based upon this information. So this may be too much of a reach if you're already locked down into an auditing situation. But for most of the companies we work with, they actually define an applicant after they apply, and then they need to, obviously attract people a certain way. So in attracting that person, all they have to do is basically show this is the search I did, and then tracking that search is an extra effort if they need to do that, which we will have probably released next year, not this year. And if you've not defined an applicant until they've applied, then that could be up to every specific situation for that company. But for the most part, if you're sourcing and trying to get attraction for the company for a specific job, we haven't had this be an issue other than if you're already in an agreement with the OFCCP or federal government to say we will do certain things a certain way. That's kind of a generic answer, if you will, but it is company specific more than it is a generic, safe answer from a webinar.
Any more for us, Matt? Any buttes like that again?
Final question: who owns the data for recruiters who are searching Open Graph? Are those connections the property of the company, or are those the property of the individual who's using the product?
I'll speak to Facebook, and maybe CJ, if you can speak to your product sitting on top of that. Open Graph doesn't rely on your connection so much to see data. It's using the power of Facebook and public information there. So back to my point, if you put two accounts side by side, one with no connections and one with one connection that's just created and one with lots of connections, like say your account, Matt, you'll find the same data. The order in which results are shown to you will change, of course. They try to match it, but the data you see is down to just being on Facebook and seeing public data. So in terms of owning the connections, I guess it's similar to probably from a Facebook point of view, the LinkedIn issue. If you don't have a LinkedIn recruiter seat, that data is owned by the person who owns the account, which is the actual user, unless you have a side agreement with your employer. And I expect it very much so is the case with Facebook in terms of I own my Facebook connections, whereas my LinkedIn connections, I might be gray. I think for my Facebook connections, they're mine. I'm just leveraging my personal account to do a better job for myself. But when you move that data or move the data into a private database, CJ, can you speak to the legalities around that?
Yeah, so we typically would, and there might be an echo, I apologize if there's an echo while talking. The data that we would collect on our application for them to apply typically aren't personal. So they're preloaded by the Facebook application itself, so we can use our one-click apply technology and have that information populated from Facebook. And at that point, it's detailed, name, contact. Typically, phone is not captured. The phone and email, name, and if they attach a resume, then that would be their choice through like Dropbox or Google Drive if it's a mobile application, etc. Then it becomes the data of the person, but again, only once it's defined as an applicant.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that while those are good guidance, make sure to consult an attorney first, as neither CJ nor Jonathan are licensed attorneys. And so with that, I believe we're running short on time. Would definitely like to encourage everyone to go check out Work4 Labs product. They have some great case studies and case uses on their website for just how to put open, graph, and hack.
Excellent. Thanks, guys, for everyone listening in, taking the time. Yeah, please reach out to either of us in terms of our council aid questions. And yeah, I think you're going to make a recording of this available to everybody, Matt. Is that correct?
Yes, it'll be posted on Twitter and recruitingwebinars.com within about an hour.
Great. Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. CJ, thanks for having me. Matt, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, guys.